Folks, sorry about that. We are back to Project Sanity, and here is Nis Peterson.
There's just a minor glitch. A computer completely crashed. We're still here with Chris Wiggins. He was kind enough to stay here with us. We had a really cool chat while we were off stream. Chris, so you spoke a bit about fracking and the disproportionate impact of it on inner city in the Los Angeles area. Can you talk some more about that?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so like when you look at it, it's when there's these are infrastructure issues, right? Well, part of it is we got to stop fracking. We need legislation to stop fracking in general. But if you look at the situation in Flint, right? Flint's an overwhelmingly black city. I wouldn't be surprised if that same situation were to occur here in California because we allow this methane to really taint the water, right? And typically, in my household, right, it's I didn't grow up with the most amount of money, so we were getting money from the tap, right? We couldn't necessarily afford to keep going and getting the nice Dasanis and Aquafinas and all, so we were getting water from the tap, right? Like it's a situation where the first place where the infrastructure is bad and where it's crumbling, that's going to hit the inner city. That's going to hit the inner city, right? When they're doing fracking, right? All that gas, methane, everything like that, every type of additive particle, right? It goes directly into the pipes that afflict the most poor communities. So it's a situation where we need to look at stopping fracking. We need legislation immediately. We can't have. I mean, it's an environmental concern, just first and foremost, that we need to get rid of. And it's a selfish, like the greed that kind of comes with doing this fracking is an issue too, right? So that's something that we don't need in society. So we need to get rid of that, right? And then the second part of that is, all right, we get rid of fracking, right? There's areas where the water is impacted within inner city, right? And it doesn't necessarily have to do with fracking. It has to do with situations where the pipes are crumbling, right? And they put like a lot of additives on it or what have you, right? And then the bad bacteria within the water attaches to those additives, right? And then boom, you're getting more poisoned water. So that screams to me, all right, well, once again, you're being cheap with additives or so. But the very first thing is let's get infrastructure. Let's get the infrastructure fixed, all right? Let's allow clean drinking water and clean bathing water to get into every type of community, all right? And then that even expands further. We have the moon. I don't know why I'm pointing behind me because it's not behind me. But you go down to I took a visit down to the municipal plant. I think it's down there, or around Carson or what have you. All right, we need to make sure that we're giving them all the resources possible. So now I see it as a situation where it's an environmental concern and it's an infrastructure concern, and we need to really be spending as much revenue as we can to make sure that people are living. Are living the best, all right? I don't think that your income or what you can afford as far as housing should impact the type of public options that you get to clean water.
No, it seems like water should be just a basic right of men. Yeah. Not that people shouldn't pay some expense amount on it, but it should be something that everyone of every income group can afford to readily shower, shave, drink.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that just makes common sense.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But so you are running. One of the questions we tried to examine before was the uphill battle that you have against an incumbent in your when you were describing your opponent, I was thinking, this is a mini Bernie versus Hillary. Like, this is the black Bernie Sanders in LA going up against another white Hillary and doing everything he can to take on the establishment. But what about your age? Is your age, are you encountering ageism when you're out there, when you're meeting the voters or when you're talking to people of influence on election?
Definitely, yeah. I definitely am experiencing ageism, and part of that is due to, I guess, my youthful look. I mean, I certainly don't feel that young, but my youthful look and, I guess, baby face or what have you is a bit of an issue. And then when they're actually able to say, hey, you know what, how old are you? Not, all right, what are your views? Or, where can I check out the website? Just how old are you? Then when they hear the confirmed age of 28, you immediately see their face change from the optimism of somebody going out there doing door-to-door to saying, oh, this young guy, all right, he needs to wait his turn, right? And the only reason he's able to do door to door is because he's youthful and et cetera, et cetera. So I'm definitely experiencing that, right? But on the flip side, we got some odd 17,000 votes, right? And I can imagine that, at least 90% of them were well older than me, just based on the demographics within our district. I think that we need to look at a situation where we can really examine kind of what age means, right? I hate to go to some R. Kelly age is just a number or anything, but it's Jay, this might set me up for Lloyd Bentsen to be able to go ahead and come back from the dead and say, hey, Jack Kennedy or so. But look, he got elected to the House at, I think he's about 29 years old, and I'll be 29, or just about 5 months shy of 29 if I were elected. All right. So the biggest thing that I like to tell them is that leadership's not based on, hey, you know what, you're 35, you're 36, you're going to be a great leader. So, right. You look at it, you can be a second lieutenant in the Air Force or in the Marine Corps at 22 years old, or you can lead a battalion at 24. So if we can trust someone so young and who's well trained and who's well versed in everything to go out and protect us overseas, I don't see why at 28 I wouldn't be able to help advise a president, because that's really what someone in Congress is going to do, and create laws. The things that impact us the most right now are a lot of issues around young people. If you look at the Democratic platform, when we're talking about student loans, that's something that hits close to home. I mean, and when we do go back to the Black Lives Matter, right? When we talk about that, okay, I'm 4 years removed, basically. Not even 4 years removed. There's still people within my demographic and age range which are the target for the police officers. So all of these issues really hit me close to home. So I feel like I'm the best representative to talk about it.
Okay, yeah, and just for our viewers to know, before this interview, we looked at some of the age groups in the House of Representatives, the U.S. House of Representatives, and there's several times where the youngest member of the U.S. House of Representatives has been 24 when elected and 25 when actually taking office. This has happened several times, so having young representatives in the House of Representatives is not a new thing. So drop the ageism. Young voices from either spectrum of the political spectrum, not too far right, please, and not too far left, but is needed. Like, we need to hear those opinions. We need their insight, because I doubt that until Bernie ran for president, he knew what Twitter was. And I think, okay, so we have a couple of comments from chat, if you don't mind interacting a bit with our live audience.
Oh, definitely. I don't mind at all.
Okay, so David Martin asked, what does Chris have to do with the entertainment industry?
Definitely. Hey, David. So I actually work at Hulu. So I'm actually a recruiter here within the technical program management space. Prior to joining Hulu, I actually worked at the Walt Disney Company, where I supported ESPN and Disney ABC Television Group. I was a recruiter there, so I got a chance to check out the ESPN downtown facilities a lot and spend a lot of time on the studio. So that's about as far as my entertainment background goes.
Okay, thank you for that. And we have more of a comment that I would like your response to from Rochelle L. She commented on your young age and the ageism you've met by saying, it's not wait your turn, it's more like, hey, we need more time to corrupt you.
Yeah, well, I definitely think that when you look at the politics of the traditional path within getting into office, it's, say, you start interning at 22, you go work for maybe someone in the assembly, or so, someone in the state legislature, or maybe you're lucky enough to get a job working for someone in the House. So you gain all of their connections. You learn about some of the interesting ways that they do things, and then they say, okay, we see you as a party loyalist. So here's all the revenue. Boom. All right, this person's going to retire because they want to go get a higher office, and then you can go in and take over their position. By then, you're really you're drinking all of their Kool-Aid, you're using all of their talking points, and you're taking money from their donors, and you're already within the system. Luckily enough for myself, part of my entry into politics was obviously interning in a Republican's office, so I saw the ways not to do things, and then when I came here and started working with the Los Angeles County Democratic Party, you know, I heard a lot of views that were from like the 1930s or so, and I used to call them conservative. I called them conservative liberals. So yeah, so they're definitely trying to get you in a situation where they can mold you into saying exactly what they want. And you know, I've gotten a lot of pushback from some Democratic officials, including those within the West LA Democratic Club that I was a chair member of, asking me, hey, why are you running? So.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, so I have a final question, and then
Sure.
we have to wrap up and move on
Okay.
to the last part of our show.
Okay.
Chris, right now there is amongst the Bernie Sanders supporters a huge schism between getting in line behind Hillary, or at least getting in line behind the progressive Democrats, and saying, no, choosing lesser evil is still choosing evil. We will go with the Green Party, please. And I'm thinking, I work with a lot of people who has a view on the Democratic Party's history, especially on minorities. So my question to you is, as both your personal history, but also politically, why the Democratic Party? Why not the Green Party?
Definitely, yeah. I'd say that the biggest thing is I look at continuity. I got in this race as a Democrat. I came back to Los Angeles as a Democrat. So a lot of that does kind of guide it. And I think from actually running a campaign standpoint, just changing, it could be problematic problematic to some of the voters when changing party, like from going from primary and going to the general election. So that's one reason. Then when I look at, as far as to address the area, kind of the history of the Democratic Party, and I think you mentioned as it relates to minorities, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, you look at it, right? This is a party that was largely built in with Southern Democrats, and you know, there's a lot of people that were within the KKK within the party, right? That's obviously a shameful history. And then right around the New Deal, that's when things started to shift and alter and all. So I look at the Democratic Party as I think that they got it wrong. Well, those who voted in not those who voted in, right? Because we know that the DNC went and got Hillary there. So those in the DNC, I think that they got it wrong. And you know, unfortunately, we're at one of those times where the Democratic Party sort of lost its way. So my reason is not necessarily, hey, no to the Green Party, but it's a yes to the Democratic Party in the sense that, yes, I'm going to change the Democratic Party and get us back where we're supposed to be, all right, back where we're the honest party, where we don't have to resort to corruption, where we don't have to, we're not supporting Citizens United, right? So it's not that I'm anti-Green Party, that I don't want to join the Green Party. It's that, hey, the Democratic Party, they need someone who's going to be on the inside to fight it and change everything. If Jill Stein were to win the election here, let her know that, hey, party aside, I have her back, and I'm going to make sure that we're going to get legislation that works. And then, that would even be the same thing if Donald Trump I'd hope that Donald Trump's not elected, but I'd let her know, hey, it's I'm old school Democrat, all right, and I'm a true progressive, and that's the type of legislation you're going to see from me. So whether I don't know who, I guess Martin O'Malley might be the person that they're looking to fill the DNC chair position. I'd let him know as well that, hey, you stay true to true progressiveness, all right, and you have an ally. If not, I'm going to keep fighting the inside, and I'm not going to play your little game. So
okay. Well, everyone, that was Chris Wiggins, U.S. House candidate for California District 37. Thank you so much for joining us, Chris Wiggins.
Thank you.
For continuing the fight.
Awesome. Thank you very much. All right, you guys have a great day.
You too. So just to sound off of something that Chris mentioned, having Jill Stein's back while still being a Democrat, the Founding Fathers designed this system around having political individuals join the Senate, the House, and the establishment in D.C. and in the local state houses. That was the idea, local individuals that had each other's back on across political ideologies. John Adams and among others were starch opponents of political parties ever coming into existence. Now, political parties today is the reality, but that does not mean we have to accept that reality for all perpetuity. Thank you so much for Chris for joining us, and I'll pitch it back to Richard to take us off into the second half of the second half.
Yeah, I just want to thank Chris again for joining us,
Thank you,
and
Richard.
I believe we have the website where you can find him, Chris Wiggins for Congress, down in the description. If not, we'll make sure to get that added.
Awesome. Thank you.
And yeah, absolutely, thank you. And we have about 20 minutes left, so not as much time as I might have imagined. So with that, I'm gonna need to adjust what we're doing here in the second half. What I'm thinking I might do is maybe we'll just go with that Jill Stein clip that I have in the rundown there for you, Dave, and then we'll go from that to a quick discussion about the Green Party as much as we can get in quickly. So we'll have to try and keep comments short, and then we'll wrap up in just the last couple minutes there. Try to get done about 5 before the hour, but if we run a minute or too long, so should be the clip. Yeah, that's the one. So we will go to that. I'm not sure if yeah, I'll let him go ahead and manage that. I'm not positive how the sound's going to come through to you guys. So once it looks like we're ready, so we will go to Jill Stein. This is a protest outside the convention on day 2. You can see the full clip in the day 2 coverage on Project Sanity's YouTube channel.
Bring back local farmers and family farmers and community farms and community cooperatives, so we are in control of a healthy and local food supply, and we put an end to food deserts, which are a transnational scandal that they exist in this day and age. And we call for a right to public transportation. Low cost, affordable, high quality, convenient, renewably powered, and energy efficient. You put that all together, what does it mean? We revive the economy, we turn the tide on climate change, and we make the friggin' wars for oil obsolete. Which is a critical part of this future, this just and sustainable future. Since 2001, since we started these wars on terror, it has cost us $6 trillion, that is $75,000 on average for every American household. What could you have done with $75,000 in your household? They keep this a secret. This is why they keep voices like mine out of the debates, because we will call them on it. Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, they cannot stand up to the light of day on their militarism, on their warmongering, on their waste of our precious resources. It's more than 50% of our discretionary budget that is going to these wars. But what few people know, the next biggest item in the budget is 7%. Okay? 54% on the military, and then a bunch of little footnotes around it. We have a military budget which is bankrupting us economically, socially, and morally, and making us less safe, not more safe. When they ask you, how can we possibly afford free higher education? How can we afford health care for everyone as a human right? How can we afford affordable housing, not gentrification, but housing we can afford, determined by our communities? How we can afford that is that we stop squandering trillions of dollars on a war budget that is making us less safe, not more safe. Our foreign policy is nothing but a marketing strategy for the war profiteers. They're sending us to war across the world, not wars that are helping anybody. And they are arming all sides. So we We call
You need to
for
bring
a
us back.
new kind of offensive in the Middle East. We call it a peace offensive.
All right, and I might have accidentally copied the wrong section there of the Jill Stein speech, but you can see the whole clip there. And I believe that was day 2 coverage. It starts about 4:50, 4 hours and 50 minutes in is about when Jill Stein goes on, and the part I was looking for. But she talks about there, you saw talking about how our military budget is a huge section of our budget, and that basically she's the only person that's actually going to bring that to the table. As we've seen, both Hillary has plans of expanding the military, and Trump definitely has plans on. He was just talking today at a rally about building more ships for the Navy and expanding the military even more so. So between military budget and a lot of other different issues, I think that the Green Party has a lot of positions that are very different than what we're getting from either of the mainstream candidates. And as a result, I think she has a point, as she mentioned in there, about how important it is to get her voice on the debate stage, whether she's going to win or not, whether you agree with her or not. It's an important part of the conversation that's going to be left out for the vast majority of the American public if she doesn't make it on that stage. And so from that perspective, I think it's very important to get her on the stage. We're going to go ahead and open it up for more conversation. And we'll make sure to get some of those other clips that I had planned on showing. We'll get several of them edited up and posted to the Project Sanity channel so that you can watch them at another time. But until then, so Nis, some thoughts on what we're going to expect from the Green Party convention. I know Saturday they've got Cornel West speaking, and that's really the day of pomp and circumstance, and then just what we're thinking about from the Green Party in general, building also of what we talked a little bit about earlier.
Well, I mean, CNN hosting town halls on third-party candidates shows that they know that there's enough interest in them that they can make some money off of it. But I don't expect it to go any further than what they did with Bernie Sanders, where they tried the Bernie blackout, and then they found out, well, that just means that the millions upon millions upon millions of hits on articles, links, are going to independent bloggers and vloggers. So they found out how to do some clickbaiting into Bernie Sanders articles so that people would go in there and read articles that were in no way representative of what was happening. But so they could get the clicks. So I don't expect anything other than making some money off of it from CNN. If Jill Stein, for any reason, should start getting even close to an average of 15%, they would drop her faster than a hot potato. Like, I mean, it would go so fast. You'd have no idea, and they would just be beating the Ralph Nader 2000 drum so hard that you have no idea. And for those of you that are curious, Ralph Nader has been reported as being the spoiler in 2000 that cost Al Gore the election, whereas it was the Republican majority in the Supreme Court that cost Al Gore the election, because Al Gore actually won the election. When all the votes were counted, it was shown that Al Gore won the election. So then you can say, oh, but he would have won it on election night if it hadn't been for Ralph Nader. Then the Supreme Court wouldn't even have been close to it. Well, here's another thing: 5% of all exit polls were 5% off of the election result in Republican-held states. So where Republicans had the majority and had the governor's house, the exit polls were 5% off of the results. Now, usually, when an exit poll is more than 5% off, that is election fraud. It is used as a universal standard in all other countries as election fraud. It is even used by the U.S. as the standard to measure when there's something fishy going on in an election. So that's the next thing. And then there were 10 other candidates on the presidential ballot in Florida that also took votes away from Al Gore. So putting it all on Ralph Nader when you had a very decent case for doing an investigation for election fraud, and you on top of that have proven election fraud in Florida, to say that Al Gore's presidency was caused by Ralph Nader? No, it was caused by insider politics. It was caused by establishment politics, And to an extent, there are several articles on this by people that were by pro-Democrat people that were written way before Bernie Sanders, by the way, in which it was reported that when Hillary Clinton ran for Senate in the same year, she vacuumed the donors in Wall Street and the rich New York areas for her senatorial campaign, which was a lock. So whenever Al Gore came there to ask for a handout from Wall Street and the establishment money in New York that are pro-Democrat, he couldn't get any. They just already given everything they had to Hillary.
So there was a whole lot. There was a whole lot that contributed towards Al Gore losing, but Ralph Nader running was probably not even in the top 10.
In top 50, I think he would have a hard time reaching.
Yeah, and
but
so
the media
and one of the things, and build off what you said about Bill Maher earlier in that interview with Bernie Sanders after the thing, is the notion that then backing away from that fight is the patriotic thing to do, which, whether it is or not, I think it stirs up some questions. Is that if fighting the idea of that there's election fraud because it may undermine our entire system and the stability of it is the standard, then how do we, if ever, confront these types of frauds or these situations? Bob McDonnell recently, he had been one of the few people that had gotten caught up in what was essentially corruption charges and got convicted, but then basically he got exonerated of those charges more or less, and that was probably the most red-handed example that we had, where he's driving around in fancy cars and wearing expensive watches, given directly from somebody who then he had recently done favorable things for. You would have to be totally inept to how politics functions and how bribery and all that, what the legal ramifications are, in order to get caught any more red-handed than he did, and he got off. And so I think for fear of undermining the legitimacy of our system, that we're not challenging what seems to be gross and rampant fraudulent activities from the local, the state, the federal level, in a variety of different situations. And it's frightening to me in that I don't see how we get better from here. If this doesn't cause people to freak out, I don't know how we get motivated for an improvement, other than if
Bill
Trump
Maher
inspires it
saying-
as a result of losing epically.
Bill Maher actually saying that anyone, that the Bernie supporters that will not vote for Hillary, that they are unpatriotic. This coming from the man who, when Michelle Obama talked about making a commission on un-American activities, I mean, this guy is calling people who are voting their conscience unpatriotic. He's calling people who are trying to bring about an end of the two-party system unpatriotic because Trump. And that galled me enough, but that Bernie let it hang in the air and didn't take down that comment, that Bernie didn't do a WWE fucking takedown on that comment. I mean...
Yeah, I think Bernie is a savage when it comes to staying on message, and I think he was drilling on how he sees our revolution moving forward and taking, regardless so much of party, as in, if we just run all of the local elected offices and it's people that have a very similar set of ideals or mindsets, whether they've called themselves a Democrat or they've called themselves a Green Party or they called themselves something else, socialist, alternative, or any of the other groups that are out there, that if we're just at every level of government, if we're at the school boards, if we're at the congressional level, if we're at the Senate level in our states, for dog catcher and everywhere else, then we can communicate with each other. The people that have been gathered around Bernie and have been gathered by the movement, when we get in rooms and we talk about things, we naturally come to agreements and conclusions, and even if we don't all agree exactly on something, we can come up with a plan to move forward that's a progress in the right direction. The problem right now is that we're in Google Hangouts or chat rooms or on web pages or on Twitter, and we're not in political office. If these same folks, regardless of how they denote themselves, all find themselves in political office, we can start to make the kinds of changes and make the kind of progressive movements and bring those types of ideals into reality together at that level, far so more than we can in the independent media level or just out in the streets. Although the out in the streets has a big role when it comes to community gardening, community policing, community engagement in general. So to that degree, I can see that. I can defend him in that way, but I really wish he would have said something about the unpatriotic thing. It was just weird hearing Bill Maher call somebody unpatriotic without irony. That was just like you realize that.
Yeah, but if you've watched Bill Maher even spottily the past 5 years, like the past year and a half, he has gone off the reservation. Like his bigotry towards Islam and Muslims and his hard-on for security in the face of this terrorist threat. And now that we've seen the actions in France, we can now finally take all these detractors who are saying that like he's sounding like Trump on everything to do with Muslims and Islam. And he then has an objection to the wall being built to Mexico, but like, yeah, I don't know what's been Bill Maher. I already thought that he was a bit too vitriolic in his the way he talked about Republicans during the Bush administration. But I mean, the past couple of years, it seems like he's gone nuts.
And I just wanted to mention, I believe you might have used the turn of phrase "off the reservation," which I have been informed is not an appropriate turn of phrase to be using. Has an ugly past. I won't go into detail, but I'm used to. It's one that I know my parents. I grew up with them using it all the time, and other folks. So it's one that I've been removing from my lexicon as well. But so I'm sure you didn't intend to offend anyone.
Oh, I have no idea what you're talking about. So please educate me and other completely perplexed people.
Apparently, and I'm only a vague recollection. I just remember basically getting the slap on the wrist, and so I remember that part. But essentially, it refers back to a time when Native Americans were basically abused when they left the reservation areas, and so
of course, yeah, okay, that was saltless of me. Yeah, sorry about that, everyone.
I presume that it's something, exactly, and so I just I do my best, and so I just want to do that, and we're just about out of time, so I did want to just go ahead and wrap up, and I'm still dazed and confused from all of last week, and there's so much stuff there, so please, if you get a chance, go ahead and check out some of it. We'll be uploading some clips that we didn't get a chance to show on today's show, so you can see some of the highlights that we found that we thought should get some more attention than they may have in the mainstream press. Otherwise, just to let you know, Ben's coming on shortly. I believe he should be up just a few minutes after we're off. And I just want to thank everybody for watching, subscribing, checking out the Project Sanity Twitter, checking out our new channel, and projectsanity.org. All the shows that have been working together in order to help produce all this great stuff. And with that, I'll give Nis the last minute or two to close us out and say anything I probably missed.
Well, I don't have that much to add, my friend, other than to say that Project Sanity is about giving a voice to people. If you want to have your voice empowered, reach out to us. If you want to help other empower their voice, go to our G+ page, Project Sanity. We have a community there where we're trying to build something step by step. If you're in any way interested in becoming a reporter or just getting a camera and a mic and going to a convention, the Greens Convention this weekend, or anywhere else to a town hall, or if you just have the opportunity to interview a candidate for office or a holder of office, or put a spotlight on something, reach out to us. If you don't know how to do it, we will help you in any way, shape, or form we can. And to those of you out there who are struggling every day to make ends meet, to those of you out there who live in fear of the police, to those of you out there who live in fear of each other, and to those of you out there who go to sleep every day not knowing how to bring food on the table next day, to all of you who are struggling, good night and good luck.